Corruption within the governmental machinery has led to people in these 22 countries living in poverty and losing trust in the government system. The economic situation has worsened, with bribery occurring everywhere and large-scale embezzlement reaching billions of USD, making these countries increasingly fragile. Somalia, Yemen, North Korea, and Iraq. Let's explore the 22 most corrupt countries in 2024 below. Number 22. Somalia. Somalia tops the corruption list, believed to be a land of terrorism and armed conflict, creating the largest corruption environment in the world. The country has been mired in violence and instability for over 3 decades with no means to curb rampant corruption. Corruption in Somalia not only appears in the judiciary but also spreads across sectors such as law enforcement, tax administration, legislation, and civil society. In October 2022, Somalia's president, Hassan Sheikh Mohammed, dissolved 2 key anti-corruption bodies, the Justice Service Commission and the Anti-Corruption Commission. Meanwhile, economic and humanitarian conditions for Somalia's people are worsening. At the end of December 2022, Somalia's president acknowledged the alarming presence of ghost workers in the country, leading to the loss of millions of USD provided by international partners to support Somalia's state-building efforts. Each month, corruption in Somalia is worsening due to the lack of administrative resources and capacity, weak leadership structures, and limited payment capabilities for officials. Number 21. North Korea. Corruption in North Korea is a widespread and growing issue. Strict rules and severe penalties imposed by the authoritarian regime, such as banning access to foreign media or modifying radios or TVs to access foreign media, prompt people to evade penalties by bribing the police. North Korea's state media acknowledges widespread corruption in North Korea by making accusations against Lee Jang-song-taek after he was executed in December 2013. The statement also mentions bribery, document falsification, resource and land sales, financial assurance, and personal enrichment by organizations under its control. Number 20. Venezuela. The level of corruption in Venezuela is significantly higher than the world standard and permeates all social strata. The discovery of oil in the early 20th century has increased political corruption. Large-scale corruption and ineffective management have led to a severe economic crisis in Venezuela. A 2014 Gallup poll found that 75% of Venezuelans believe corruption has spread within the government. Protesters argue that dissatisfaction with corruption was a major factor leading to protests in Venezuela in 2014 and 2017. In early 2023, the country arrested over 40 officials on suspicion of corruption. Officials were accused of embezzlement of public funds, money laundering, abuse of influence, and treason. The total estimated embezzlement amount reached $3 billion USD. How do you perceive the corruption situation in Venezuela? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Number 19. Libya. Over the decades, Libya has faced numerous corruption issues caused by the government, militia forces, and major oil companies. Corruption in Libya stems from what political researchers call the resource curse term, describing countries with economic stagnation and lack of democracy due to abundant natural resources. Oil production has made the country prone to corruption, pushing it into internal conflict, violence, and political instability. Corruption primarily originates from the government, public officials, and private enterprises. Although Libya has anti-corruption laws, lack of enforcement has facilitated widespread corrupt practices such as embezzlement and bribery in public procurement. Corruption within the law enforcement system is also prevalent in Libya, with reports indicating police officers engaging in misconduct such as bribery, embezzlement, abuse of power, and extortion. Therefore, Libya is currently striving to build local governance to maintain democracy and combat violence and corruption. Number 18. Dr. Congo. The Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, is one of the largest and most chaotic countries in Africa. It has endured colonial occupation, dictatorship, conflicts, poverty, and diseases, but it also holds some of the world's richest mineral reserves. DRC has long been ravaged by corruption, which continues to occur in various sectors, including police, judiciary, mining, and state-owned enterprises. Additionally, restricted media and government crackdowns on dissent have created conditions for corruption to flourish. Number 17. Syria. Corruption in Syria follows familiar state corruption patterns, specifically government officials abusing political power for personal gain. The country was considered a drug state by the United States for almost a decade until 1997, when Syria controlled cannabis cultivation in the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon, and was the main source in the Middle East. Equatorial Guinea is referred to by its people as a perfect pirate regime, because corruption here is not just an individual issue but has become a system. The government is indifferent to the welfare of the people, with nearly 90% of Syrians living below the poverty line, and 60% of the population lacking food security. Living conditions in much of Syria are deteriorating unprecedentedly. The Syrian government has offered very little support, but has done the opposite, extorting Syrians through administrative fees, border taxes, laws, and increasingly open policies to confiscate the property and assets of Syrians. Number 16, South Sudan. Do you see that the richer a country is in resources, the more likely corruption is to occur? Perhaps you think so. Please comment your thoughts on whether resources are a curse or not, because corruption in South Sudan is also due to abundant resources. Corruption in South Sudan is one of the worst problems in the world, with the main source of income from oil. South Sudan was expected to recover quickly after the transition process, but instead, the country collapsed into civil war, economic downturn, and increasing international isolation. While leaders hold the majority of power in all areas of the country, they squander resources. The country lacks control systems to prevent fraud and misconduct among senior government officials, especially between government procurement officials in the finance and economic planning sector. The Dura Saga case is the largest and most costly corruption case in South Sudan since the country was established, although dozens of other major corruption cases involving similar misconduct have occurred. These events are often covered up and rarely lead to prosecution or punishment. Reports from the Center for Anti-Corruption Resources identify the main types of corruption in South Sudan as administrative corruption, protectionism, political corruption, and embezzlement, specifying that these forms of corruption mainly occur in the mining, financial management, and police and security forces sectors. Another issue is ethnic consciousness, as there are about 200 ethnic groups living in the country. According to the World Bank, about 80% of South Sudan's GDP comes from oil exports. This is a major problem because international oil companies have been able to exploit the government's structure and the country's weak management policies, making huge profits from the hard work of the people. In fact, 85% of the country's workforce is engaged in unpaid labor, and more than half also live below the poverty line. Number 15. Chad. Corruption in Chad is characterized by familial politics where nepotism is prevalent within the ruling family. Businesses report frequently bribing officials to influence court decisions. Chadians have little trust in their country's judicial system and try to avoid engaging with it. Corruption in this country is largely present within both the military and police force of Chad. Security forces often engage in petty corruption, violence, and extortion without repercussions. Even police commit crimes on the streets and unlawfully arrest foreigners, often tourists. Corruption in Chad's public services is characterized by authoritarianism and bribery. Public infrastructure projects undertaken by the government lack transparency and are highly corrupt. Since oil extraction, the country has also been condemned for increased corruption, misusing resource extraction funds and excessive waste. Number 14. Myanmar. Corruption in Myanmar is currently among the worst in the world due to state mismanagement failures. Corruption has proliferated in all government and business sectors. Many foreign businessmen see corruption as a serious barrier to investment and trade in Myanmar. Furthermore, the ongoing civil war exacerbates the corruption issue in Myanmar. Corruption is most rampant in business activities, particularly concerning business registration, business licenses, and permits from government agencies. People here often bribe tax collectors to ensure lower tax payments and bribe customs officials to evade customs duties. This long-standing situation exacerbates the severity of corruption. Number 13. Haiti. Once again, a country in Africa with the worst corruption in 2024, Haiti. What do you think when you see the entire African nation on this list? Please comment and let me know. Evaluated as one of the worst corruption countries in the world, Haiti is facing a problem affecting every aspect of life. Corruption is diminishing efforts to establish a strong legal system and leading to the deterioration of democracy and the quality of life for the people. Nearly 60% of Haiti's population lives below the national poverty line, with 25% of them facing poverty. Corruption has spread at all levels of government, severely affecting the economy and community life. Although there has been progress since 2008, when Haiti ranked 4th in the world in corruption, there is still much room for improvement. The weak economy, coupled with the risk of collapse along with paralyzing natural disasters, has inflicted significant damage on Haiti. Number 12, Honduras. Corruption is currently rampant among officials and public agencies in Honduras, causing significant losses to society. A study found that corruption cost Honduras over $2 billion in 2018, equivalent to 12.5% of the country's GDP. In 2022, former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez was even sought after and surrendered due to involvement in corruption and drug trafficking. Here, corruption occurs in the hands of the wealthy and powerful, but ultimately, it mainly harms Honduras's poor. In fact, the country's education system is so degraded that teachers are not even accountable to attend classes, so children also miss out on education. Corruption in Honduras could leave many feeling desperate. A 2019 survey revealed that 54% of Hondurans believe corruption has increased in the past year. Number 11, Yemen. Yemen is known as the most corrupt country on the Arabian Peninsula. It is also the poorest country in the Middle East, with unusually high birth rates, chronic child malnutrition, and rapidly dwindling oil and water reserves. Most importantly, the government lacks any control and accountability systems here, leading to corruption spreading across both public and private sectors. In Yemen, rampant corruption nationwide has led to a weak government and all public resources being controlled by corrupt authorities. Corruption in Yemen is so widespread that it is undermining the security and economy of the country. The consequences of corruption in the government machinery include a large number of ghost workers, leading to systemic poverty and inequality. Energy, telecommunications, healthcare, and education sectors all suffer from corruption, resulting in extreme hardship for the population. What do you think about the corruption situation in this country? Feel free to leave your comments below. Number 10, Burundi. Although Burundi has established anti-corruption agencies, the country is facing an increasingly deepening corruption crisis that could threaten peace, development, and economic growth supported by state and foreign investment. Here, corruption in Burundi is believed to be systemic. Corrupt practices persist mainly due to a lack of corruption control, as those tasked with monitoring corruption at the national and local levels are themselves the most corrupt and embezzling individuals. Burundian low trust in the state leads to bribery when dealing with the government. This ingrained distrust exacerbates the corruption situation. Number 9, Equatorial Guinea. Political corruption in Equatorial Guinea is exceptionally high, far exceeding international standards, making it one of the most corrupt countries in the world in 2024. Equatorial Guinea's government is controlled by a small group of power, which accounts for most of the country's revenue, and this group transfers money into offshore bank accounts. This is a result of the country's oil exploitation and other natural resources, which however are concentrated in the hands of a few powerful individuals. The use of violence by the government to suppress dissenters has left people living in misery. The population here lives in poverty with limited access to education and healthcare. The corruption situation in this country is worsening. What do you think about this issue? Please leave a comment below. Number 8, Eritrea. Do you know the country Eritrea? If you know anything about this country, please let me know in the comments. Eritrea is located in Africa, bordered by the Red Sea, directly opposite Saudi Arabia, Djibouti to the south, and Sudan to the north. Eritrea is a small and relatively poor country. After years of isolation, Eritrea has begun opening its borders to businesses and foreign investment, along with privatizing state-owned assets. This has allowed some government officials and other powerful individuals to exploit their positions for personal gain. Being ruled by a single party, though a democratic one, makes it easy for this party to manipulate the economy, corrupting it for its own benefit. The country's economy has been stagnant for many years, and the risk of war in the region spilling over into its borders is also a concern for the people. Number 7, Turkmenistan. This country shares borders with Iran, Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan to the north. With ongoing instability across the Middle East, Turkmenistan has fallen into corruption for many years, particularly focused on leadership figures from authoritarian presidents. The country itself was established after the collapse of the Soviet Union, as were many other countries in the region. As a result, power struggles have made the country heavily corrupt. Like many other countries in the region, Turkmenistan's economy relies mainly on agriculture and energy. The country is fortunate to have large reserves of crude oil and natural gas to supplement its economy. Although they are government-controlled, many investors have withdrawn from the country due to state abuse, leading to high levels of corruption. Number 6. Comoros. Comoros is an African island nation and one of the smallest countries in the world. It has witnessed some interesting scandals in recent years, including the government beginning to sell passports. Comoros is also one of the poorest countries in the world, with a GDP per capita of around $1,350. Over 40% of the population in Comoros is living in extreme poverty. The primary causes of poverty in this African country are limited economic opportunities, trade, rapid population growth, both government corruption and natural resource scarcity. Number 5. Nicaragua. Yet another country in Africa plagued by corruption, Nicaragua. Do you know anything about this country? Please comment and let me know. Corruption is a serious and increasing problem for business activities in Nicaragua. Since Daniel Ortega's election in 2006, corruption has increased in Nicaragua. President Ortega has consolidated all branches of the government under his party's control, restricted basic freedoms, and allowed corruption to spread within the government. In particular, Ortega has elevated his wife to become the vice president of the country. His children also hold important positions in the government, leading to the manipulation of the economy, politics, and society by his family. What do you think about this? Feel free to share your thoughts on the government of this country. Number 4. Azerbaijan. Corruption in Azerbaijan is considered widespread and occurs at all levels of government. From the corruption during the Soviet era to the present day, it still prevails and exists today. Azerbaijan's economy is characterized by corruption and inequality. The country's wealth in oil has created stability for the autocratic regime of the Aliyev family and has enriched those in power. The country also has a money laundering scheme, where $2.9 billion was paid to foreign politicians and Azerbaijanis. The corruption in this country is increasingly prevalent in education, healthcare, and business in general. If you want to live here, you must find a way to bribe. What do you think about the dictatorship of this country? Please share your opinion in the comments. Number 3. Zimbabwe. Since before the COVID-19 pandemic, corruption has been a major issue in Zimbabwe. The appearance of COVID-19 has made the situation worse, increasing the burden on an already weakened system. However, Zimbabwe has made efforts to curb corruption and stabilize the economy. Nevertheless, corruption has deeply penetrated this country, from the public sector to private sectors. Excessive political interference and resource constraints in improving transparency and accountability in state-owned enterprises always occur. Efforts to address corruption in the natural resource sector have been initiated by anti-corruption agencies in the judiciary, but progress in investigating and prosecuting politically related individuals, as well as recovering stolen assets, remains very slow. Number 2. Iraq. Iraq is a Middle Eastern country with vast oil reserves. However, political conflicts, first initiated by dictator Saddam Hussein and later by sectarian violence after the US invasion, have devastated the public and social systems, leading to corruption. Corruption, poor management, and rampant nepotism in Iraq have caused great frustration among the people for many years. The country's wealth and vast natural resources have made it a target for all types of industries and profit from war. Iraq has also seen much interference from outside companies contracted by the US and Europe, hired to rebuild infrastructure and exploit the country's oil reserves. Last year, the country was also hit by a scandal when a former minister revealed that 3.7 trillion Iraqi dinars, nearly $2.5 billion, were embezzled in a fraud case by the maritime tax authorities. According to the Iraqi Ministry of Finance, this amount was stolen from the account of the tax authority at a branch of Rafidain Bank. Even in 2021, former President Barham Salih estimated that Iraq had lost $150 billion due to corruption. Do you think this amount of corruption money is large? Please leave your comments below. Number 1. Lebanon. Ranking last on the list is Lebanon, a country also in turmoil due to corruption for many years. Corruption in Lebanon is widespread and permeates all levels of society. Political parties, government administrative agencies, the parliament, and the police are considered the most corrupt organizations in the country. Part of Lebanon's political instability is due to the country's failure to establish proper government structures and a lack of strong political will to fight corruption. Especially the anti-corruption spirit is one of the motivations driving many large-scale protests in Lebanon recently. The biggest reason is the Beirut explosion in 2020. Many signs indicate negligence and systemic failures leading to thousands of tons of ammonium nitrate, the chemical believed to have caused the explosion, being stored unsafely in a warehouse at Beirut port for 6 years. The Beirut explosion killed over 150 people and injured 6,000. Officials estimate the explosion caused 15 billion USD in damages. This has left people extremely outraged. So, we have explored the 22 most corrupt countries in 2024. What do you think about the countries and the details I shared above? Have you encountered the situation from any country on this list? Remember to comment to let me know. Thank you for watching our video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest videos. See you in the next video.